America had no paper money until 1862. Imagine opening your wallet, pulling out a $20 bill. Now imagine someone telling you, for most of America's early history, that piece of paper wouldn't have been considered real money. In fact, for decades after the United States became an independent nation, there was no official national paper currency at all. People trusted heavy silver coins, gold coins, or whatever local bank happened to print its own notes. So how did America go from a nation that distrusted paper money to one where almost every dollar exists as paper, or even just numbers on a screen? The answer begins with one of the darkest moments in American history, the Civil War. Before the Civil War, money in America was complicated. Colonists had used almost everything as currency: Spanish silver dollars, British coins, gold, even tobacco and other goods in certain regions. Barter was common. If you had something someone else wanted, you could trade directly. After independence, things didn't become much simpler. The federal government minted coins, but coins were expensive to produce, and there simply weren't enough of them. So private banks stepped in, thousands of banks, each printing its own paper notes. A note from a bank in Boston might be worthless in New Orleans. A merchant often had to carry books listing which banknotes were trustworthy and which were likely fake. Counterfeit bills spread everywhere. Some banks even disappeared overnight, leaving their paper completely worthless. Imagine traveling across the country today, only to discover your money stopped working after crossing a state line. That was everyday life in early America. Many politicians believed this chaos was still better than allowing the federal government to print unlimited paper money, because paper could be abused. History had already shown that governments sometimes printed too much, destroying the value of their own currency. So for decades, America relied mainly on coins and privately issued banknotes. But then, everything changed. In 1861, the Civil War erupted. Suddenly, the federal government faced an impossible problem. Wars are expensive. Soldiers needed salaries. Weapons had to be manufactured. Railroads had to transport supplies. Food had to reach millions of troops. Every single day, the costs exploded. The government tried borrowing money. It wasn't enough. It tried collecting more taxes. Still not enough. Its gold reserves began shrinking, fast. Officials realized something terrifying. If they couldn't find money, the Union might lose the war, not because of the battlefield, but because it simply ran out of cash. That crisis pushed President Abraham Lincoln's administration toward an idea many Americans had long feared: national paper money. In February 1862, Congress passed the Legal Tender Act. For the first time, the United States government could issue paper currency that people were legally required to accept for most debts. These notes became known as Greenbacks. The nickname came from the green ink printed on the back, a design that also made counterfeiting more difficult. The first issue totaled about $150 million, an enormous amount at the time. Unlike many earlier banknotes, these bills didn't come from private banks. They came directly from the federal government. For the first time, Americans everywhere could use the same national paper currency. It was a financial revolution, born from war. But not everyone celebrated. Many people were deeply suspicious. After all, these greenbacks couldn't automatically be exchanged for gold or silver. Their value depended largely on trust, and trust is fragile. Critics warned the government was creating money out of thin air. Some feared runaway inflation. Others refused to accept the new bills at all. Gold quickly became more valuable than paper. At one point, one paper dollar was worth significantly less than a dollar in gold. People watched gold prices almost like stock prices. Merchants sometimes charged different prices, depending on whether customers paid in gold or greenbacks. The debate became so intense, it eventually reached the Supreme Court. Was Congress even allowed to make paper money legal tender? The answer wasn't settled overnight. Court decisions changed over several years before the government's power was ultimately upheld. Meanwhile, greenbacks kept circulating. The Union continued financing the war. And despite inflation, the new system worked well enough to keep the economy moving during one of the nation's greatest emergencies. Here's something many people don't know. The famous green color that still dominates U.S. paper currency today didn't become standard purely because of tradition. It also offered practical advantages. Green pigments were durable. They resisted fading. And they were harder for counterfeiters to reproduce using 19th century printing methods. Sometimes, design choices become history. When the Civil War ended, America faced another decision. Should paper money disappear? Now that the emergency was over? Many expected it would. Instead, paper currency stayed. Over the following decades, the federal government expanded its role in managing money. The National Banking Acts helped create a more consistent banking system. Eventually, the Federal Reserve was established in 1913, giving the country a central bank capable of managing the nation's money supply. The relationship between paper money and gold also changed. For many years, American dollars remained linked to gold in different ways. But in 1971, that final connection ended. Today, a dollar bill isn't valuable because it can be exchanged for gold. It's valuable because people trust the United States government, its economy, and the shared belief that everyone else will also accept that dollar tomorrow. That same idea, trust, first faced its biggest national test back in 1862, when the country chose paper over metal, not because it wanted to, but because it had no better option. So the next time you hold a dollar bill, remember, you're holding the result of a wartime experiment that permanently changed American history. Without the Civil War, your wallet might look completely different today. And here's an interesting question. If the government announced tomorrow that all paper money would disappear and only digital dollars would remain, would you trust them just as much? Let us know your answer in the comments. If you enjoyed this story and want more surprising history behind the money we use every day, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because history isn't just something we read. Sometimes we carry it in our pockets.